What's up, my good peoples? Welcome to the Be Transformed podcast, where we're talking about ideas that stimulate wholesome thinking into identity, purpose, vision, and action. I am James Anderson, and today we're listening to a message from our BT community group. This is a group that meets twice a month online, and all these messages can be found on teambetransformed.com/community group. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. I was reading in Ephesians the other day, and there in chapter 6, it was talking about the armor of God. And whenever I kind of think about the armor of God, for me, it always speaks to like identity. For me, it has a lot to do with the way we think. Part of it's talking about, it's like, the armor of God that enables you to withstand, the day of evil, but also having done everything else, it enables you to stand. And that's what we're going to talk about today, right? Is this ability to stand. As we're growing, developing, becoming, taking new actions, creating new results, again, jumping outside of the comfort zone. It's important to be able to stand, especially when sometimes you get some backlash, or sometimes things don't work out as you thought they would, or however it works, it's important to be able to stand. It's important to be able to stay inside of identity, know who you are, remember who God is, right? What we're doing in this life, and the ability to continue to move forward. And so today I just want to take a look at this from, kind of a mentality standpoint, and see what kind of goodies we can get out of it. So in Ephesians 6, 10 through 18 says, "Finally, my brethren and sistren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil." Wiles means like trickery, or to lie in wait. He says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against rulers, against the powers, against the rulers of darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the day of evil, and having done all, to stand." Right? To stand sure, to stand confident, to stand, and not fall. So he says, "Stand therefore, girding your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Pray always with all prayers and supplications in the Spirit, being watchful to this end, with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints." So what I want to do is I just want to kind of take a look at this paragraph here, and the kind of the analogy of the armor. And I'm going to rearrange it a little bit. We'll go from head to toe. This was kind of like started in the middle and on the way out. But anyways, he talks about, the helmet of salvation. Right? Obviously, the helmet covers your head, your brain. And when I think about salvation, I think about freedom. Right? We said that 2026 was the year of breakthrough and success. And I think we're still in the breakthrough phase. But, when I think about salvation, the helmet of salvation, right? The mind of salvation, right? Because again, we're talking about perspectives here. Salvation, I think, equals freedom. Saved from, right? Released from, free from, right? Talking about freedom from sin, freedom from the past, freedom from generational dysfunction, right? I grew up, and this is how we grew up. You're not bound by that. I grew up then, and there was this kind of dysfunction. You're not, and my parents grew up and it was in this kind of dysfunction. And their parents grew up and it was like freedom from generational dysfunction. Just because it was like that doesn't mean it's like that for you anymore. Doesn't mean we have to stick like that. We don't have to think like that. We don't have to act like that. We don't have to get those results, right? We're free, saved from past generational dysfunction. Freedom from evil desires, right? This is a good one. And it was like, salvation and freedom also brought about reconnection to sonship. So freedom from evil desires is 2 Peter chapter 1, 3 and 4. It says, His divine power has given us everything we need for a godly life through our knowledge of Him who called us by His own glory and goodness. Right? So he says we have everything we need. Another version used to say, whatever, I can't remember anymore. But anyways, everything you need for a godly life through our knowledge of Him, right? So through this experiential insight and understanding, you find that you have everything you need for life and godliness, right? And He gave us that and called us into that from His own glory and goodness. So through these, His glory and goodness, He has given us His very great and precious promises so that through them you may participate in the divine nature. That's the mission. That's the intent of God. Having escaped the corruption in the world caused by evil desires. Interesting. It's like the key piece to corruption is bad ideas that are acted upon. When we talk about evil desire, a desire is like a craving. It's like the motivation to take action. Evil is a descriptive word, right? It's a type of desire. Desire is not bad. It's just that the quality of the idea that we're marinating on determines whether or not the desire is good or bad. But He's like, hey, look, you've escaped the corruption of the world caused by evil desires, right? In chapter 3 in Genesis, right? That enter in the knowledge of good and evil. Before chapter 3, there was no need to consider the quality of the idea. Every idea was just beautiful and glorious and expansive, and it created wonderful things. After chapter 3, there was a massive need to consider the quality of the idea. Well, He said, hey, look, you guys have escaped the corruption of the world caused by evil desires, right? It's freedom from bad ideas. That's the byproduct of the mind of Christ, of getting reconnected to the source of life, to where we're meant to be, right? Freedom from dysfunction brought into function. So when I think about the helmet of salvation, I think about these things. I think about, and these things, they shape your identity and they shape your self-concept, right? Because if I think I'm still stuck in sin, or if I think I'm still stuck in the past, or if I think I'm bound to the dysfunction of my past, that negatively impacts my identity, and it negatively impacts, how I handle different challenges in life, right? Because we're talking about the ability to stand. And when you're going to stand in the storms of life, you need to have your identity correct. And so that helmet of salvation, right? The mentality that you have, the mental image that you build inside of your mind, man, it's got to be connected to, the truth. It was Bill Johnson who said it some time ago, and he said, I can't afford to think a thought that God's not thinking. Like, I can't afford to think a thought about myself that He doesn't think, right? Like, there is a false idea of humility that says I am nothing and I'm no good. The only thing that does is it disintegrates your self-concept, which I'm telling you is not God's intent, right? He says through these precious promises, it gives you the ability to participate in the divine nature. That's the mind of God. Bam. So we're also talking about salvation as, the reconnection into sonship. So in Galatians 4, 1 through 7, it goes like this. Now he's in the middle of talking here, but he's trying to explain this whole thing of sonship. He said, what I'm saying is that as long as an heir is underage, he is no different from a slave, although he owns the whole estate. The heir is subject to guardians and trustees until the time set by his father. And also, when we were underage, we were in slavery under the elemental spiritual forces of the world. But when the set time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. Because we are his sons and daughters, God sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but God's child. And since you are his child, God has made you also an heir. Sonship is different than slaveship or servantship. Servanthood? You ever been on one of them ships? We don't talk a lot about, we don't use the word a lot here, obedience, right? You can read in other people's like mission statements and organizations. They're like, our mission is to make people obedient to Christ. It's like, we don't talk like that. People who talk about obedience, like slaves and servants talk about obedience. Where sons and daughters talk about relationship and purpose is a different reality. What a father would do for his kids versus a servant is different. The way kids are able to talk to their parents, like when you're talking about like a total functional relationship, the connection, the relationship, the insight, the position, the intimacy is very different in sonship than anything else. We deal with sonship because this is true reality and identity. So that's the helmet of salvation. Freedom, identity, man, freedom from everything else. Free, right? What we read that in Isaiah some time ago, right? It's like the Spirit of the Lord is upon me to proclaim freedom for the captives. So the next one was the breastplate of righteousness. The breastplate goes over your heart. Whenever we're talking about the heart, it's funny, I don't even know where that term comes from, but it's like whenever we're talking about the heart, we're not actually talking about that organ that's pumping blood throughout your body, right? That's just an organ. They're actually talking about the subconscious mind, which is where your paradigm lives. It's the seat of your emotions is in your subconscious mind, and that's typically what people are talking about when they're talking about the heart. But when you think about like the breastplate of righteousness, righteousness simply means having right standing with God. It means I am in right. This is directly connected to that sonship piece. Is that I am in right standing. There was a time where I got got into a couple religious ideas, and it's tricky because in the wrong mentality, in the wrong belief system, in the wrong self-concept, you can chase after things you already have as if you didn't have them. The problem is that when you chase after something you already have as if you didn't have it, you will never find it because you're already overlooking the fact that you have it. You will never find it, and you will run in circles all the day long. And so in Romans 8, from Romans 4 through Romans 8, Paul's talking about this whole thing about righteousness and about freedom and about, dead to sin, dead to the old man, and alive. And so this is Romans 8. This is coming into the middle of kind of towards the end of like a certain kind of conversation. And here's what it says. So Romans 8, 1 through 9, it says, There is therefore no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. For the law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus has made me free from the law of sin and death. For what the law could not do, in that it was weak through flesh, God did by sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh on account of sin. He condemned sin in the flesh, that the righteous requirements of the law might be fulfilled in us, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, nor can it be. So then, those who are in the flesh cannot please God, but you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if in fact the Spirit of God dwells in you. We've talked to groups, man, who can't grab a hold of this concept right here, this verse 9. It's dangerous. It's possible, man, to put the wrong emphasis, to overemphasize certain things. You could pull a section like this, out of a book and not realize that there's a conversation going on here that started many chapters ago. And when you don't understand the context, it's easy to misunderstand what's being talked about. But Paul's giving all these examples. He's like, look, man, when somebody gets married, you enter into this contract and this covenant that says, hey, until death do us part. So it's like, I'm going to love you the rest of your life. Okay, well, when while both people are alive, if one person divorces or whatever, if a couple divorces, it said, listen, you guys are still connected by one flesh. Therefore, if you marry again, you're actually entering into adultery. But he's like, if one person dies, that contract no longer applies because the person is dead. And so now you're free from that contract. And this is the whole point, right? He's like, it's like baptism is that representation of dying. You lay down in the water. And when you come back up, that's new life, right? So I died to the old thing. I'm no longer connected to the old contract. And now I'm free to live. And that's what this is talking about. And so righteousness is about having that right standing, that right position with God. It's about getting reconnected into that sonship. Further down in Romans 8, 28 through 30, it goes like this. It says, we know that all things work together for good for those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Check this. For whom he foreknew, thought about ahead of time, he also predestined, set the destination ahead of time, to be conformed to the image of his Son. I can't afford to hold a thought about myself that God does not think. For those he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren, right? So Jesus was the firstborn, and after that came the pattern of the rest of us. Moreover, those he predestined, set their destination ahead of time. These he also called. Whom he called, he also justified. And whom he justified, he also glorified. There is no benefit to hold an idea about yourself that God does not think. For those he foreknew, he predestined to be conformed to the image of the Son. This is the mission, right? He said, those who are called according to his purpose. Those he foreknew, he predestined. Those he predestined, he called. Those he called, he justified. And those he justified, he glorified, right? These are all speaking into who we are. These are the building blocks of our self-concept. This is the ability to stand when challenges arise. Who am I, right? You come back to who we are, right? You know, it was like the fact that we are loved, the fact that we are kids, that we have sonship, right? It validates our existence. And when your existence is validated by the truth of who God is and the truth of what he says, it's much easier to stand. But when challenges arise, and if our self-concept is mixed up and our picture of God is mixed up, man, that junk causes you to stumble backwards pretty good. So it matters, right? So that's the helmet of salvation, keeping the mind right. The breastplate of righteousness, keeping that heart right, right? Having the right ideas of who we are and who God is. So next he gets into the belt of truth and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, right? So these two things kind of coincide. You know, it's like one's able to hold your pants up and then the other one's able to fight. But you know, a belt, you know, you would have a belt on top of your outer layer that would actually hold your weapons. But thinking about the truth in John 8, Jesus is talking to a group of people, and he says, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. He's like, hey, if you know, because he's been taught, he's in the middle of a talk and big group of people, and he's like, if you actually hold to my teachings, if you actually do what I say, right, like, then you're really my disciples. It's not just somebody who hears it. It's not just somebody who could regurgitate it, who could just say it again or quote it. He's like, no, if you actually practice what I talk about, then you're actually my disciples, right? A disciple is a student or a learner. You know, it's like a disciple is somebody who's committed to a master, like Bruce Lee was like a master of martial arts, right? A disciple of Bruce Lee would be somebody who actually like trained and studied under him and who was becoming like he was, right? This is what Jesus is talking about. It's like you're actually my disciples if you're actually taking what I'm saying and applying it to your life. Because here's what actually follows. He says, if you hold to my teachings, then you're really my disciples. He's like, then you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. Knowing the truth is not the ability to quote a scripture. To know the truth is this knowledge right here is experiential knowledge. He's like, if you actually take what you hear and apply it, it'll actually create change. It's in that experience, insight, understanding, and reality that the truth sets you free. I used to think like this. I got a hold of this new idea. I started applying it to my life, and it freaking changed everything. Like I would never go back to the old way. This is what he's talking about. This is what truth with insight actually is. It's actually applicable. I can apply it to my everyday life, right? We often say if you can't use it, you should probably lose it. Because the kingdom of heaven is practical, right? We say the kingdom of heaven on earth is function in every area of life. Like when I think about this concept of truth, the belt of truth, the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, right? It's the truth of what life actually is and how to actually walk in it. It's all these all the building blocks of our self-concept and our identity of freedom and right standing and sonship. Truth matters. Truth matters because if you don't know the truth, it's easy to get swept away. Knowing the truth, right? Like taking time to study for ourselves is vital. Because if you don't study for yourself, then whatever you're hearing, you're just accepting as true. And sometimes what we hear is not quite true. But it's like you have to have that solid base. You have to have, your own personal cultivation and your own personal study to actually be able to have the knowledge built up to be able to think for yourself and to be able to consider, hey, is that actually right or not? Do I actually agree with that or not? Because we're all responsible for what we do. We're all responsible for how we think. We are responsible for us. You don't want to just put your life in somebody else's hands. Like we are meant to take that on. We have to take that responsibility. This is how we're going to take those teachings and put them into practice. This is how I heard somebody else said recently, it's like to know the truth, it's like to know reality. To know reality. Bam. Right, so the next one was, so we had the helmet of salvation, breastplate of righteousness, belt of truth, sword of the Spirit, right? I mean, even, when circumstances, situations come and they war against your identity and they war against your actions, it's like knowing the truth, knowing what you stand on matters. So then he talks about the shield of faith. A shield, he talks about the shield of faith and being able to extinguish the flaming arrows of the enemy. A shield is that ability to have defense, keeping with the theme, you get somebody trying to smack you with a sword, you can block that bad boy with the shield, coming back, attack with the sword. It's hard to catch an arrow with your hands or with your teeth. So, a shield can help you, give you a little more surface area so then those arrows don't whiz by you. But, faith, in Hebrews 11:1, it's like faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. This is a lot about what we've been talking about. It's like, okay, God's calling us into new things. There's not like a big giant billboard out there saying, hey, go this way. It's like, it's this sometimes very quiet voice that's like giving us insight into the steps that we need to take, right? It's like, it's the ability to see in your heart, in your mind, beyond what your eyes can see. But sometimes, you're talking about like these flaming darts. You got different situations. You got fear. You got doubt. You got uncertainty. You got these different ideas coming at you. It can start to try to disintegrate that idea, right? Because we're talking faith, man. We're talking about the unseen. We're talking about having an idea that's beyond what we see. And so whilst what we see in our mind isn't what we see with our eyes, like it takes that faith to continue to do the work today, knowing that, listen, tomorrow, I might plant some seeds today, I'm not going to have a harvest tomorrow. But I know that if I keep working today and I keep working tomorrow and I keep working the next day, I know if I keep putting in the effort, I'm telling you, what I saw in my mind, I will see with my eyes. But it's like in those times where it's challenging and you're taking those actions, but you're not seeing anything, it takes that faith. It takes all these different aspects of of the right mentality to be able to continue to stand. When you're hit with different emotions and different low quality ideas about doubt, about fear, and about identity crisis, and it's like, well, maybe this whole thing was stupid, it was never going to work anyways. It's like the ability to stand even whilst you've got your emotions are going crazy, you've got ideas, other people are saying stupid things. It's like, what do we do when the actions that you're taking are being challenged? Man, we got to be able to stand. You got to be able to withstand and hold out. Like, you can't just tap out. You can't just crap out. You can't just walk away. You have to be able to stand. Even when it's like, whoo, I'm not seeing with my eyeballs what I was seeing in my mind. You got to be able to stand. You got to be able to be confident in what we hope for and sure of what you do not see. And then the last one was the shoes of peace. There's the peace that surpasses understanding, and I'll take that all day. No problems, no questions asked. But I think understanding and insight create a whole lot of peace. When you don't know, when you're having challenges, financial challenges, relationship challenges, and you don't know what to do, that junk's hard. There's not a lot of peace there because it's like, I got these freaking problems, but I don't know how to solve them. Right? There's confusion, there's frustration, there's fear, there's doubt. It's like, I don't know what to do. Insight, understanding, a pathway forward, that creates peace. Where I can take these steps and over time it will create new results. That stuff creates peace. Right? The kingdom of heaven is function in every area of life. When you can walk into a space of dysfunction and with insight, skill, and ability, you can bring the solution, that brings peace. That's shoes ready to move in the gospel of peace. Listen, man, the gospel, the good news was that the kingdom of heaven has come. The reality of the kingdom is upon us. That was the gospel. And having that insight, the understanding of sonship, of freedom, right, of right standing, understanding what the truth is, understanding the functions of the different aspects of life, man. It brings that peace. It establishes the kingdom in your life. And it's like that then is what flows out. But having the right mentality, the right identity, the right building blocks, when challenges arise, it enables us to stand. It doesn't mean it is pretty. It doesn't mean that it feels nice. It doesn't. It's just like, listen, this is a storm. I'm in the middle of the clouds. I can't see anything in front of me or behind me or around me. But I'm going to stand in confidence, in reassurance that what I'm doing, where I'm going, what I'm becoming is everything God's calling me into. This is the ability to stand. And so I want to wrap up this talk with in Numbers. So when Israel they get to the Jordan for the first time, and the 12 spies come back spying out the land. Everybody's like, look, the land's nice, but who cares? It's not possible. So just forget about all your dreams and your hopes and your wishes. And they're like, we're not doing it. Let's stone these fools and let's go back to Egypt. So they get disqualified from going into the promised land. God's like, listen, man, you were in there for 40 days. For every day you were in the promised land, that's a year. And you're going to wander in the wilderness until you freaking die. And the kids that you were so afraid of that were going to get taken advantage of, they're who I'm going to give the promised land to. So 2 chapters after that. So that's like chapter 16. These they were from the house of Levi, and there was like 3 ringleaders and then like 250 other people from the congregation, and it said like they were people of like renown, like they were they were higher ups, had people of influence. Well, they come up to Moses and Aaron. They're like, listen, who the heck are you guys to be leading us? So we got out of Egypt. We crossed all the wilderness, got to the promised land, only to, tap out at the end. And they're like, why are you setting yourself above us? It's like every single person in this congregation is holy. Like essentially, like, why do we need you? Moses prostrates himself on the ground, and he's like, all right. Moses is like, all right, well, why don't you guys all get some censers, like these bowls, put some fire in it, put some incense in it, and tomorrow let's see who God chooses. And so they get out there, and and 2 of the ringleaders, they're like, listen, you brought us out of the land of milk and honey, talking about Egypt. You brought us out of what you were promising us. And then you didn't even take us into the promised land. Like, we don't have vineyards. We don't have farms, land. We don't have anything. Like, you brought us out here and you didn't even give us anything, right? Totally absolving themselves from fault, right? Like, they are not taking responsibility for the fact that it was they were the reasons why they didn't enter into the promised land. They're absolving themselves and blaming Moses and Aaron. Woo, so Moses gets pissed, God gets pissed, and so Moses prays to God. He's like, hey, don't accept their offering. And so after these guys just said that you took us out of a land of milk and honey and didn't bring us into one, Moses is like, okay. He's like, here's how it's going to go down. He says, if these guys right here, and so this is the next day, and the 250 people who were standing up against Moses and Aaron brought the entire congregation. So now everybody's here. It's a whole coup all over again. And Moses is like, all right, here's how this is going to go. He's like, if these guys who stand against us, if they die of natural causes, God did not call us. He says, but if God does a new thing, this is Moses getting creative. This situations cause you to think creatively. Moses says, if God does a new thing and he causes the earth to open up and swallow these people and their families and their possessions into the pit while they are alive, then God has called us and chosen us. And so, bam, God causes the earth to open up, swallows the 3 ringleaders and all their possessions and all their families, and they go down into the pit. And then fire goes out from these like censers, these bowls that they were holding that had fire and incense, and it burns up the other 250 people. And then there's like a plague that happens, and God kills 14,000 people until Moses sends Aaron out in the middle to atone for their sin. All right, but then the next chapter, in chapter 17, God's like, he's like, okay, I'm gonna solve this problem once and for all. This whole leadership challenge. I'm gonna solve it. He says, here's what we're gonna do. He says, get a staff, like a walking stick, from every leader of the family, right? So, the 12 tribes. And Aaron is going to be the leader of Levi, the house of Levi. So he's like, get everybody's staff. So 12 staffs and all, have everybody write their names on their staff, and then have them and then we're going to put the staffs in the tabernacle. And the next day, whoever staff buds, is growing a plant, that's the person I've chose. God's like, I'm going to solve this right now. So they stop complaining against me. Otherwise, I'm going to kill them all. And so they grab the 12 staffs, write everybody's names on it, put them in the tabernacle. Next day, Moses goes in. There's the 12 staffs, right? 11 of them still just look like sticks. And Aaron's staff buds, right? Like whatever, man, like a branch, a vine grows out of it. It's got buds, it's got blossoms, and it's got ripe almonds. It was a dead stick. And this beautiful thing, like life and growth and fruit, come out of it. And I was just thinking, like my prayer for us is, is that, because what that was, right, is like both those chapters, Moses and Aaron are constantly getting challenged. God's being challenged. And it's like in that time, God does things that reaffirms and confirms who Moses and Aaron were. It confirmed their ministry, their leadership, their purpose, their mission. And when I think about the staff budding, blossoming, and like having almonds on it, it was a dead stick. It was once a part of a tree, but it's just a stick that they've been walking around the countryside with. And it's like, it's such a display of like the I don't know, man. It's like the immense ability to create. Like it's this creative expression of something so beautiful. And what it was, though, is it reconfirmed who Moses and Aaron was. And my prayer for us in this next little time, man, is that we would find these confirmations, right, as we continue to stand for, the mission that God's put on our hearts, the actions that we're taking, the life that we're building, that matters more than just for you. It's going to impact your future generations. My prayer for us in this time is that we would find these buddings and these blossoms and these almonds, that there would be like these times of confirmation and reaffirmation of who we are, where we're going, and what we're doing. And that life, that power, man, that connection with the Father and sonship, man, would fuel us to continue to move forward into this next stage of the season. Guys, thanks so much for kicking it with us. Until next time, peace!